half here at the moment, so we're going on to the next session, which is Jim on FUNcube-D. That's it. Well, it's okay with everyone.
Well,
we haven't got the speaker, so he'll be along hopefully after.
Hopefully, yeah.
So, okay.
If not, we'll adjust the programme again. Good afternoon, everybody. It's not just me on FUNcube-1. It's Graham's going to do a little bit. No, some towards the end. It's quite difficult to know how to sum this up. Graham's also had a good touch on some future things, hence the and beyond bit. Just to recap, we were launched on about 20 months ago on that date, November 2013. Seemed just like yesterday. So we've done 612 days, or that number of minutes, and that number of orbits. And what's really good, I think, is that we've captured just about a quarter of the packets that have been broadcast into the warehouse, which I think is a huge achievement on behalf of the team, the amateur radio community in general, and also Dave, who wrote the warehouse. That's my favourite picture, which you've probably all seen before, so I won't dwell on that. I've got a short video which doesn't work in PowerPoint, which videos never do, in my experience anyway. So we'll go direct to that. This is an animation. There's no commentary to it, but it's an animation we got from Cosmotraz just before the launch, and they said, "Oh, it's very secret, don't show it." But it's now over 18 months later, so hopefully, if I'm not here next year, look for me in via the KGB. In Russia. It's not quite in real time, it's nearly real time, but I've chopped it a bit because some of it's a little bit sort of boring. I'm not certain if you've seen it before. I don't think we've shown it at the colloquium before. What?
Streaming for the next 5 minutes.
Oh. No, I don't think it's that bad. So that's the launch out of the first stage of the rocket out of the silo. It's the last.
Like a missile, doesn't it?
Yeah. It's the last. Actually, the best bit of this video is the last sort of quarter of it, which is, I think, fantastic. It gives you real insight. There we go. There's a second stage. That's third stage now, yeah. And that's where I've cut it. That bit goes on for about a minute, but it gets a bit boring. So here we are with the payloads in. And it does this curious reversing manoeuvre. Don't ask me why. Probably for accuracy, I guess.
Point the missiles more accurately on.
Yeah. Yeah. Have a look at the ground underneath, because I think it's quite accurate if you can pick out the geography, but I've never looked very carefully. So here are all the satellites coming out. Was it 27, Graham, in total, or was it 32? And now there's FUNcube. The middle of those first three was FUNcube coming out. And you can see some 2Us and 3Us coming out.
So they're really losing those by thrusting? Yeah.
The springs. The springs in the pods.
Still, the engines are still on.
Yeah. I think that's more, I don't know. It's a combination of the two, I guess. And there they are. All.
And then it does do a de-orbit maneuver.
So I thought does give you an idea of how these sort of multi satellite deployments sort of work.
Have they got the orbit systems on it?
Not my topic. As at last weekend, we had 872 stations had uploaded data to the warehouse. So, some of them only one packet, to be honest, but some of them, like Mike, a lot of packets. And as I said there, I think it's not a competition, but he has uploaded the most. And we've had a total of that number of megabytes uploaded. So I put this on full screen.
Do you have a job, Mike?
No, he's got an automatic station, I think. Where is the cutscene? Oh, yes, yeah. No, he has an automatic station and quite a good location, I think. Just to recap, as also, before I get onto this slide, don't forget the dual aims of the satellite were to support STEM activities in schools and school kids and stuff, and also provide a transponder. So far, we've had 4 what I've referred to as stops. People have emailed us and said, oh, you know, the signal's gone. And the first time this happened was on the 15th of April last year. And I think a lot of the team sort of thought, oh, maybe that's it. Maybe we've crashed somehow or something's gone wrong. And we spent a lot of Skyping time, several hours, trying to decide what to do, what we should do, and what the causes could be. And we decided, look, let's just, when it next comes over Europe, we'll just send an MCU reset command, which is really just resetting the microprocessor. And all of a sudden it burst back into life. And I'll tell you what, there's a lot of relief. It was really, really nice. And I think we lost the signal for roughly 2 hours. We've had further stops on those dates, the latest 21st of June. And to be honest, we're not quite certain what's happening. It could be sort of cosmic rays. We tried to correlate it with the spin rates, but we think it's some sort of brownout, either in the MCU or on the I2C bus. But one lesson we have learned is to panic slowly. We've had our fair shares of notifications of from NASA of possible collisions, of which an example's there. And I think we've had about 20 of those, maybe a bit more actually. And there's not much we can do about them. We just sort of hold our breath, and we haven't collided yet. But as I say, we've had 20. And you can see, well, they have this, it gets a bit mathematical, I think. I haven't been into it in detail, but the actual sort of, 89.6 meters apart. Well, what does that mean, sort of thing, you know? And how accurate is it? But so that's been happening in the background. These fitter messages have proved to be quite sort of, I say successful. There are some fairly static ones, like the dates of the colloquium we've had on for several months. But we've had quite a few requests, more so actually in the last 6 months or so than in the early days, from people doing demos, schools, universities, etc. And typically it says sort of, oh, greetings to class 5B of such a school. And the feedback we get is quite good, and people get a buzz. They say, oh, yes, we've downloaded our message from space. Unfortunately, our log keeping hasn't been too good, but there's an example of a message. I think it's this weekend, actually. Might be watching. That they're doing a teachers thing at headquarters of the ARRL, and they asked us, could we put a message up, which we did. And there's a list of some of the other people we've done. Quite a lot in UK, but Canary Islands we've had, and the ones you can see there. One of the highlights was the demo at the Faraday Lecture Theatre at the Royal Institution in London. It was given by Ben Allen of the University of Bedfordshire in July last year, and that's his fitter message that we put up for him. I've got a couple of pickies. Here he is in the lecture theatre, which is quite a prestigious sort of place. I've never been there, to be honest. They wouldn't let me in. But you can see he's got the dash. Those of you familiar with it, he's got the dashboard out on the big screen there, and the audience clapping away. It's quite interesting to look at the age of the audience. A mixture of ages. And there's the guy on the roof doing the live demo, holding the antenna. Not a very nice job, I shouldn't think. Did you go there, Graham?
I did for a setup.
For a setup? Yeah, okay. Yeah.
On the roof.
On the roof, yeah. So that went down pretty well. Here's another one that Ken, our very own Ken Eaton was involved. He was sitting at the back. And this is a Scout Jamboree. And if you can look carefully, there's a little guy holding a model of FUNcube. And this girl right on the right-hand side has got a copy of Oscar News. And they were receiving the telemetry. And that's that's a really good age group to catch, actually, about that age. And whether they take it on or not, we can't really tell, but the thought is there. Graham got to know the guy who's whose company has bought Goonhilly from, I guess, BT about 3 years ago. And we went to visit him, and Graham very kindly donated a PC and a dongle. And so we set it up for them with the idea that it could stay there, and it still is there, and it's still operating as far as we know. It appears on the warehouse very regularly. And we're hoping that they will incorporate that into their visitor centre when that's established, which I think they were going to start doing at the beginning of this year. And there's a turnstile antenna. Not a very good picture, I'm afraid. Transponder Operations. I bet most of you know, but it switches automatically. When it's in daylight, it's in educational mode, so full power telemetry. And that's on the basis that that's when the schools will want to use it. And then when it's in darkness, when people are at home, that's when the AMSATs want to use it, and it does that automatically. But about May last year or April last time, we appreciated that in the Northern Hemisphere, the transponder wouldn't be on that much because there's not that much daylight. So we switched it on full time at weekends. But that's, unfortunately, for us, that's a manual operation. Requires a station from a command station action. They've been quite popular, 20 kcs wide. And, you know, to be honest, I don't listen very much, but I think there's quite often there are more than one station on, which is good. And we have activated it for special events like the US Field Day and this weekend as well, mainly because Graham and I aren't there to do anything else, so we switched it over a bit early. 73 on 73 award. This was started quite spontaneously by a chap called Paul Stoitzer, N8HM, and we're very grateful for him doing that. And he sort of said, I'm going to produce an award. If you've got 73 contacts on Oscar 73, you can have a certificate. And the first one went to OC0RA, and the first award in the UK went to David Bowman, G0MRF, who actually, I think he still is operating, he just has a fixed antenna, doesn't have any rotators, so you don't need much. And there's a specimen of the award. Oh, announcement time, okay. This is what I alluded to before. A lot of the schools, particularly the schools, have said, look, can we have some sort of certificate to show, to put on the wall sort of stuff? And it's taken a while, but we've now produced that. But you can only download it if you put into the next page I'll show you, your call sign as per what's shown on the warehouse, i.e. what you registered with. And if you try anything else, you just get a bit of a sad face, to be honest. And there's a URL, amsat.me.uk. Select the bottom option, and that takes you to that. It's very simple. You just put in your call sign. You can print either a certificate, which is like an A4 sheet, or a QSL card, and it comes down as PDF with your call sign and other details formatted into it. And there's a facsimile of it. This actually, interestingly, is for ZS6 B&M, who was the first guy. And you can see, you tell by the date, 21st November, 7:38, you see.
17 minutes after lunch.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. So he's logged into the warehouse and can still get his certificate if he's listening. And over to Graham. Sorry, Graham.
Just enjoying that. Okay, yes.
So just one or two reflections and bits and pieces about FUNcube-1, and then because we have this AMSAT-UK space programme, not just a single mission now, a bit of an update on 2 and 3 and others. So, FUNcube-1 interesting graphs. Anybody care to guess what that's a graph of the total panel current, whole orbit data, graph of the total panel current. You can see it's in the sun, and then it's in eclipse, and then it's back in the sun, and other than Jim, and then it goes into, it sort of loses power. Okay, shout it out. Solar eclipse in March, whatever it was this year. So we could see the spacecraft, or the effect of the spacecraft going into the eclipsed area. So we liked that one. But a few weeks ago, same sort of graph, in the sun, in eclipse, back in the sun. But look at the blip here, when it went for, I think, about 6 minutes, we reckoned. 5 or 6 minutes, it lost power, but almost. There was some current, but not very much. That's whole orbit data. If you can answer, in the warehouse, all this data is available for public review in the warehouse. We've reviewed it. We don't pretend to be orbit experts, but we actually don't know what's caused that. It stopped doing it, if whatever it was.
It happened more than once.
And it's happened more than once.
Several successive.
Partial eclipse, penumbral eclipse?
Don't think so, but yeah, that is possible. But it's happened on more than one orbit. It was in June, I think. I've forgotten the dates now.
Did it tie up with near misses?
No, not that they told us of. But for 6 minutes, you're doing 17,500 miles an hour. So for something to be eclipsing you for 6 minutes, it's either got to be really big or really close and going in exactly the same direction. And if you compare it with the previous one, that was quite gradual. The tail off of current was quite gradual for the solar eclipse. So we're very up to any, obviously, bright ideas. We've checked is it X37B that was launched, but that's not in the same, or it's not high enough and it's the wrong inclination. Is there a broken panel? No, we've got six panels with 6 solar cells. That was an initial thought, obviously, oh gosh, we've lost power to one of the panels, or lost, one of the panels isn't producing power. But I don't think that's the answer.
Is there any solid state switching?
Well, yeah, within the EPS, is there any solid state switching was the question. Within the EPS, there are 3 channels. So there are 3 power channels. Each channel has power from the opposite pairs of solar panels. So, yeah. The other possibility, no disrespect to GomSpace, is that it's something odd's happened in the EPS. But it's a bit like, if you can't think of another reason, blame the power supply, I suppose. Chris, sorry.
How many times? You said
3 or 4, I think, over 1 or 2 days.
was it the same time in
No. And it wasn't over the same part of the world either. Don't know. I think it was. I need to. Well, not me, but we need to do some more research. But I think it was quite often about 1/3 into the sunlight period. From having looked at some.
Any sort of solar burst?
No. So.
Do we know that it did actually lose power, or?
Yes, it showed. Yes, it wasn't just one channel that was showing. The question was, is it just one channel that's showing this effect? The battery voltage dropped off a cliff,
Right.
and the individual solar panels currents. There were 3 indications. I can't remember what they were. Yes. Sorry, Mike. Yeah. How do we know it's not bad data? On all 3 channels, possibly. 3, yeah.
Does it correlate with temperature?
Don't know. Me too.
Then you know if it's a sensor effect or if it's really sun missing.
Okay. The answer. We're seriously still open for bright. But the good bit is that the data is there. It's in the public domain for anybody who wants to go and play with it. Look at the warehouse. We'll fish out the precise date so you can get the CSV files. That is all the data points we've got for that particular pass, but there's 3 or 4 passes that show similar effects. Or sorry, 3 or 4 orbits that show similar effects. This is a graph that we get provided by Colin, VK5HI, and if he is watching, goodness knows what time of the night it is, but if he is watching, thank you on behalf of us all. He provides this with support sometimes. He goes away fishing, I think, so VK5GU takes over, and occasionally Jim has collected the data. This is the spin period of FUNcube-1 measured by panel currents, panel temperatures. And you can see, remember that FUNcube-1 is passively controlled. It's got a magnet and 2 hysteresis rods. The magnet is not in the center of the spacecraft, it's in one corner-ish. The intention of a passive magnetic system is that it just flips over the magnetic pole, so what is down, it tracks the magnetic pole, so it goes like that, and then it will flip over on the other pole. And that the rotation rate is sort of random. But it's, so this is upside down actually, this graph. It's really fast. The spin period is sort of about 30 seconds, I think, is about the quickest. And the slowest is up here, which is the spin period of 300 seconds. So it goes quite fast and then slows right down really, really quickly. And then at these points we panic because it's going to get really hot, because the effect of this is that some of the temperatures, certainly on the outside, become really quite extreme because they're in the sun the whole time. There's no sort of rotating effect. What nobody has been able to explain is that graph. Again, you can think of solar radiation, phases of the moon, it's cold in space in winter. So that's a fascinating one for some more research. One day. It's a daily chart. Okay, so yes, one day. Yeah. So there's a whole load here when it's doing that, and then, yeah, between one day.
No, I mean between the 2 peaks.
Between the 2 peaks. Sorry. Right down here is 13th of March. 27th of March is probably that peak.
About 3 months.
And that's coming up now. That's 2 or 3 days ago. So I haven't put the one I got from Colin just this morning is up about here.
Is it not some resonant frequency with the moon gravity or something?
Prove it, yeah, please. Is it gravity of the moon? Yeah, it was. It must be something, mustn't it? But we're learning. This is an experiment.
Which axis is that on?
I'm not sure I know the answer. Which axis was it on?
Looks at the X and Y.
What is happening certainly when it gets really slow is it starts to wobble and it's doing all manner of sort of gentle sort of flippy bits. Yeah. So we're learning. That's it smoothed over a 5-day value. Sorry, I should have shown that to you earlier. 5 values, average data. Doesn't show a particularly different picture, but it slows down really quickly and speeds up really quickly, that's for sure. Yep. Who is? Oh, Colin is watching. Oh, well done. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your support over the 20 months we've been going. Push the button, nothing happens. Okay, so moving on from interesting graphs, the next missions, the FUNcube project next missions, we've got 4. FUNcube-2 on UCube is already in orbit, as we know, as is FUNcube-3 on QB50. If we'd known that we were going to have lots of these when we started, we would have done what AMSAT-NA does and give them letters after their name before they launch and then give them numbers. We didn't think of it, so I've sort of cheated a bit now. So the 2 that haven't yet launched are FUNcube-D, which we created yesterday as a title, on Naive 1, and you'll hear more from Walter about Naive 1 later on in the colloquium, and FUNcube-E on a SEO. These FUNcube-E on a SEO is a payload on a microsat, so it's a bit different. Going through very briefly, just to remind everybody on FUNcube-2, it was a 3U CubeSat UCube-1, launched on the 8th of July. We've got a full FUNcube payload in there, i.e. it's telemetry and transponder. You'll hear tomorrow from Helen Walker, who is the project manager at RAL, who's been doing all the reception and a lot of all the commanding and reception of the data, the main mission data from at RAL, exactly what is happening at the moment. They're still working on exercising all the science payloads. We're hoping to have custodianship, sorry, I knew that was going to happen, custodianship of the spacecraft when the science missions are over. We're just starting to talk to the UK Space Agency about that, as to exactly how that would work. But I think there's going to take some time before we get to the stage of having this sort of custodianship. One of the things that hasn't yet been tested is their S-band transmitter at 2.2 gigs. There's various things afoot to get that exercised and tested in the near future. May include another trip down to Goonhilly, Jim, to play with the space catapults dish down there. So there's a lot still happening. You'll hear more from Helen Walker tomorrow on that one. We have tested the transponder over the Christmas. Did various tests there, and basically it works quite nicely. FUNcube-3 on QB50P1. QB50P1 is a 2U CubeSat as a precursor for the QB50 mission, launched 14 months ago or something, 13, 14 months ago. It includes just a transponder. We haven't got any telemetry downlink on that. Again, the science payloads are still being exercised by VKI and their team. Again, we have tested it for a weekend. No, just one pass. We tested our transponder and it sounded just like the other transponders. So that was a successful test. But again, we are waiting for the primary mission to be completed before we can have it running continuously. The power budget, I'm looking at Walter when I'm asking this, I think the power budget of our transponder, if there are no other science missions going on, there would be nothing in terms of power budget to prevent it being switched on and run continuously. Yep. Yeah? Okay. So that's FUNcube-3. FUNcube-D on Naive 1. This is being done, the project is being done by the American University of Sharjah and the Mohammed bin Rashid Space Center. I knew I wouldn't get that one right. So they've approached ISIS, our colleagues in Delft, to have a CubeSat for their university students to develop. Between them, they concluded that one of the quickest ways and most effective ways that they could get a CubeSat into space with science and educational outreach for students and for schools in the area would be to build a spacecraft that is very similar to FUNcube-1, which is a great complement. So that's what we are together building. It will have almost identical transponder to FUNcube-1. It's going to be 30 kilohertz wide rather than 20, because we found that the power spread across 30 kilohertz will still be sufficient. It will have an enhanced set of oscillators, so your satellite tracking software that tracks the Doppler should be sufficient to automatically track the spacecraft, because obviously with a very small CubeSat you get a lot of thermal issues, thermal change during the orbit, and as we discovered with FUNcube-1, that puts a lot of stress on the oscillators, which have been designed to be very low power, and very low power oscillators drift like whatever. Anyway, so it will be enhanced. The other change or enhancement is that there is an active attitude control system on Naive 1, which will eat into the power budget a bit, but will hopefully give us the ability, or give them the ability, to control the spin rate more easily than we can on FUNcube-1. Again, we've got more information about Naive 1 later in one of the later sessions. and it's scheduled for launch at the end of this year. It's scheduled for launch probably on a Falcon 9. The primary mission is probably slightly delayed. Falcon 9's had a bit of a snag recently with fuel tanks, pressurization tanks coming loose inside the fuel tank, which struck me as a bit weird. So the end of this year is probably going to be delayed a bit. But it will go fairly quickly, so I don't want to eat too much into your presentation about it. So FUNcube-E on a SAO. Again, we're going to be hearing a bit more about this project from Chris tomorrow, and I've got a engineering model, or what ESA now calls an EBB, which is it's the elegant breadboard.